So here we go. This is day 3 of solving equations with rationals. We're going to start off with some decimals. These examples are not meant to be incredibly difficult, so if you think they're easy, that's fine, but just remember to show your work no matter how easy or difficult the problems are on your homework. So this is x plus 2.5 is equal to 3 3/4, or 3 75/100. We want to do the opposite of this to both sides because this is our variable expression and the whole thing is an equation, but we need to isolate the variable from this constant. So by using the inverse of 2.5, and the inverse of 2.5 is negative 2.5. 3 3/4 minus 2.5. Opposites equal 0, so the variable expression x plus 2.5 minus 2.5 is now just x. And as far as solving this goes, some of you might need to actually show your work. Remember to line up the common place values. Don't focus on the decimal, focus on the place values, the ones place and the tenths place. So by subtracting, we get 5 minus 0 is 5, 7 minus 5 is 2, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So x is 1 1/4. We're going to do another example. This time I'm going to use the method I think most of you prefer. Alright, this is where I'm going to show the work stacked instead of horizontally. So this is y minus 6 1900 is equal to 18. So again, we want to isolate y, so we're going to use the inverse operation of this expression right here. So now we're going to have y minus 6.19, and beneath that we'll write plus 6.19. Over here we'll write 18, and beneath that we'll write 6.19. Again, opposites equal 0. This is a negative 6.19 plus 6.19, and that will leave you with y. 18 plus 6 is 24, and that leaves you with 24 19/100. If the directions say to check your work, that means you need to take this solution, 24.19, and replace it wherever you see y. That would be the example right there. So it looks something like this. And then you'd actually solve this side, and it will turn out to be 18 is equal to 18. So that's decimals. Decimals are pretty straightforward. There's a clearing the decimal technique, but I'm not going to use that today because of the problems we're working with. It won't be necessary. And generally I think you can solve these without clearing the decimal. But now we're moving on to fractions. And there's two types, of course. There are like fractions, and there are unlike fractions. Tell you what, first we'll do two unlikes. X plus 1/2 is equal to 7/8. Now there are three terms here. There are x, half, and 7/8, and all three have denominators. The 7 has a denominator of 8, the 1 has a denominator of 2, and the x has a denominator of 1. So the question is, what is my least common denominator? Well, you have 8, 2, and 1. 1 times 8 is 8, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 1 is 8. So the LCD is 8. So that means every one of these denominators has to be 8. So we're going to go with x over 1 times 8/8 plus half times the factor times 2 that gives us 8 is 4. So this will be 4/4. And then luckily this is already 8. So we don't actually have to multiply it by 1 if you don't want. Now this is called clearing the denominator. We've done this before. This is where you cross out all the denominators and we just focus on the numerators now. So we have 8 times x is 8x plus 4 times 1 is 4, and that's equal to 7. Now the thing you need to remember is that just because we cleared the fractions doesn't actually mean we won't get a fraction for an answer. There's always that possibility. What we're left with here is a two-step equation. Again, we want to isolate x, so first we'll focus on that constant. The opposite of 4 is to subtract 4. So 4 minus 4 is 0. That'll leave us with 8x. 7 minus 4 is 3. Now we're down to 8x is equal to 3. The coefficient's 8. So we want to divide by our coefficient. And this is where you got to really take your time and realize what you're going to do. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so that leaves you with x. And then this is 3 divided by 8, or 3 over 8. Now if you're taking your time, you'll realize, well, 3 over 8 is 3 over 8. Some of you might actually try to do the long division and give me a decimal, or give yourselves a decimal. Just remember, you're just adding work to your load there. So this is an acceptable answer. Let's try another one, and I might just show you a similar fraction here. Let's see, y minus half is equal to 1 1/4. So we have a mixed number with a denominator of 4. We have half, negative half, excuse me, and then we have a y, which also has a denominator of 1. So let's make everything a fraction, whether that fraction is improper or not. So this is y over 1 minus half, and that's going to be equal to, when we change this to improper, 4 times 1 plus 1 is 5/4. What is the least common denominator? Let's see, we have 4, 2, and 1. Well, 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 1 is itself. So the least common denominator is 4. So now we're going to change or multiply each fraction with the correct factor. So y over 1 times 4 over 4 minus 1 over 2 times 2 over 2. And again, 5/4 can be left all alone. This is my favorite part. 1 over 4 is 4. I'm sorry, 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. And then this is already 4. So 4 times y. Negative 1 times 2 is equal to 5. And right about here, they really start to resemble each other a great deal as far as the first and second examples go. We're going to isolate our variable expression by adding 2 to both sides. This time I'll write it this way for you. So 4y minus 2 plus 2 is 4y. And 5 plus 2 is 7. Again, we need to isolate the variable, so this time we're going to divide by the coefficient of 4. And again, be careful on this next step. 4 over 4 is 1. That leaves you with y. And, well, 7 over 4 is 7 over 4. This is an acceptable answer. Now, if you choose to change it to a mixed number, go ahead. But remember, you're going to take that responsibility on your own shoulders. Because if you accidentally give me the wrong mixed number, well, then you've just took it a step too far and in the wrong direction. Here, we're going to do something just super quick where there's some like fractions, something easy. Y is equal, y plus, 1 over 5 is equal to 2/5. Now in this one, we do have two fractions that are alike, but we still have one term here that needs to be changed. So this is 5, and this has a denominator of 1. So our least common denominator is going to be 5. 1 times 5 is 5, and these two are already 5. So the only thing we have to change here is our y over 1. The other two fractions are just going to be rewritten. Again, we're going to clear our denominators out. And we have 5y plus 1 is equal to 2. Then we subtract 1 from both sides because we're trying to isolate this variable expression of 5y. So 1 minus 1 is 0, leaving you with 5y. And 2 minus 1 is 1. Again, we need to isolate the variable, so we're going to divide by the coefficient of 5. Five over 5 is 1, leaving you with y. And y is 1/5, which is correct, because if you do the check, this check right here, y is 1/5 plus 1/5 is equal to 2/5. Well, 1 plus 1 over 5 is 2/5. This is a great example of the balance between the left side and the right side. So there you go. Remember to show all your work. That's the number one thing. And when in doubt, go back to the beginning of each problem and just make sure you took step by step real carefully, all right? Good luck.